one before this episode of the F2 show starts. Completely shameless plug. If you haven't done so already, press the subscribe button. We're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers this year, so we'd be incredibly grateful for any support that you could show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Enjoy the podcast. Hello everyone. Welcome to the F2 show by Inside F2. We've had pre-season testing, the season opener is just around the corner and it's time to get excited, isn't it? Joining me to preview the 2024 Formula 2 season, we have Inside F2's Aaron Harper and Formula 2 commentator Alex Brundle. Alex, talk to me about your off-season, feeling refreshed and ready to see some cars back on track. I guess you're kind of contractually obliged to say yes to that question, aren't you?
I am incredibly excited. I actually am, you know. We moan about how short the off season is, you know, with so many F1 races. Then we get to February and we're kind of like, do something. So exactly. See if it could do something. So I'm incredibly excited. I mean, there's obviously been testing to muse over, although I know that testing can be so neither here nor there, especially at Bahrain, you know, where the track is so specific to certain drivers. So, it's going to be fun to watch them go wheel to wheel again, that's for sure.
Definitely. Aaron, we're almost there. Season's almost starting. How excited are you to be spending more time on video calls with me during these podcasts throughout the season?
I can't wait. I love looking at your face. It's great. And, you know, like Alex said, we've had the testing, although it was probably even less representative this year, considering there was a monsoon in Bahrain. So it was like, pick the bones out of that and, you know, you can't make head or tail of it. So, you know, always excited to get a new season started. F2, F1, it's always that expectation. Who is going to emerge as the front runners, especially in Formula 2, where they've got equal machinery, and this year, generally new machinery. So if someone can make a fast start, that could set them up for a real assault on the title.
Absolutely. Let's start with that then. Obviously, a brand new car for 2024, as you've mentioned. Alex, can you talk to us about the differences? How different is the new car compared to the old car?
The feedback I'm getting is not massively. In terms of power, you know, the basic metrics of a racing car: power, weight, aerodynamic, downforce, drag. So power and weight, incredibly similar. Aerodynamic downforce, the feedback from the drivers is the car creates a little bit more than the previous iteration of car. They're feeling like in the high-speed corners, it's a little bit more stable. The previous car was a bit sort of snappier. And the geometry of the front suspension was probably the most talked about element, how that affects the way the car sort of integrates with the racetrack. What I was expecting to hear is, I have no front end from all of these drivers, because what you would tend to do, the aim of the new geometry was to reduce the steering torque, which was incredibly high in the previous car, especially with the 18-inch rims. So what you generally do is take a metric called caster out of the front suspension, which is basically the front of the car lifting as it turns. So you're actually jacking the car up as you're turning the wheel, and it pushes the tyre into the tarmac. What you tend to lose there is a bit of front end, but actually the drivers seem pretty happy with it. Visually, the car looks much more like a new generation Formula One car. Will it behave like a new generation Formula One car when they're nose to tail and wheel to wheel? That's yet to be seen.
It's really interesting. So what would you think the main challenges will be for the drivers in the new cars? And we've spoken a little bit about, you know, is this going to equal the playing field? Are the rookies going to have a bit more of a chance coming in with a new spec car? Do you think that is genuinely the case?
I think it's generally more open, yes, but you're still dealing with, you know, a turbocharged Dallara single-seater on a Pirelli tyre of that amount of power. You know, it's I don't think it's going to be far enough. Normally you would say yes, like your basic racing mind says yes, new car, everyone goes back to square one, but I don't think it's a back to square one car. Honestly, I think it's close enough, especially in the tyre profile and how that'll perform. so that the returning drivers will have a better chance of performing.
Okay, Aaron, we've obviously seen the cars on track. What were your first thoughts? I guess aesthetically, what were your first thoughts of the cars as we saw them on track?
It's just that rear wing, isn't it? It stands out like a sore thumb. It's just so big in the middle. It doesn't seem correct. And obviously the front wing as well looks a bit like Chase Carey's moustache way back in the days when he was running F1. So it's got all of the bells and whistles, and it looks great, actually. Now you get to see it on track. But like Alex said, hopefully they race quite as well as the F1 cars do. Hopefully it comes without the porpoising issues, because that could be a problem if they had to go back to the drawing board and change the way the car is fundamentally designed. But touch wood, fingers crossed, it all goes smoothly and we get some excellent racing. And I think it's going to look much more like a feeder series to Formula One, because simply the cars look like baby F1 cars now.
Yeah, they do, don't they? I'm with you. The rear wings are going to take some getting used to, but we got used to the halo pretty quickly, didn't we? So I'm sure it'll be the same in Formula 2. Any standout liveries for you, Aaron? Any liveries that stood out to you?
The Invicta Racing one is one that's going to be very important, because we're getting a sea of sort of carbon fibre black in Formula 1, and then people are going to be tuning into Formula 2 and go, wow, colour, this is amazing. It's all going to be HD and everything. So you're going to come from like the 1950s television where everything's black and white in F1. F2 is going to be full colour, full throttle, and the Invicta Racing car is going to stand out beautifully in its bright yellow. And hopefully Kushmani and Gabriele Bortoleto can take it to the front so we get to see it in all its glory.
Alex?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we're seeing more and more sponsor-titled Formula 2 teams, which... you look at Invicta Racing, Rodin, Motorsport. I mean, I know that there's been a full takeover down at the team that was, previously Carlin. I'm taking that as rather a compliment, actually, in a roundabout way, because what it means is that the broadcast and viewership of Formula 2 is meriting a sponsor-titled team, which is rather good. I'm sure my check is in the post. And it's by no means, it is about 1% me and about 99.999% the brilliant job that everyone at F1 TV does broadcasting the series. But that's cool. I really like the way Prema have adapted their livery to the new car. It's really weird, isn't it? Because and I think it kind of shows a great knowledge of how a great vision for how the race car will look on track, because what they've done is they've adapted their livery in a way that where it's still so clearly Prema, but they've added quite a lot more kind of green bits and broken the car up in different places. And if you put the old livery, if you put the previous Prema livery on the new car, it would look rubbish. And they've recognised that, and they've just tweaked it. Less is so much more, It's really nice.
It looks lovely, doesn't it? I've got to say as well, I really like the Victor Martins ART livery. I know there's a bit of black on that, Aaron, but I think that looks nice. Unpopular opinion. So I really like the Invicta. I like Kushmani's Invicta car. I'm not sure about Gabriele Bortoletto's Invicta car. I don't know. The orange and the McLaren orange on the rear wing, the yellow. I just don't know, Aaron. I'm not sure. I really like Kushmani's, though. Yeah,
I'm just looking at the yellow and the orange combination now, and it doesn't look right. It looks a bit like a fruit bowl, to be honest. But let me just change the browser so I can see Kushmani's.
The background of your laptop.
But yeah, the yellow with the orange, not quite the way I'd go. But you've got to sell the sponsorship spaces, haven't you? So if it's a multicoloured mess of glory, that's fine, I suppose.
They're all pretty when they win.
Yeah, that is very true. They look good when they win. I'm just interrupting the podcast because I want to talk to you about motorsporttickets.com, and I promise you're not going to want to miss out on this one. As the motorsport season starts, now is the best time to secure your tickets before they start to go up in price or to sell out. Motorsporttickets.com have a huge variety of different tickets from Formula 1 race weekends, which of course include Formula 2 and Formula 3, the World Endurance Championship, MotoGP, Le Mans 24 Hours, and so many other events that are going on in the world of motorsport. Get your tickets fast now by following the link in the description to see all of their exclusive offers. Right, back to the podcast. Okay, 14 rounds obviously this season, including the first visit to Qatar. What did you make of the season the calendar this season, Alex? Pretty good one?
I think it's probably the most jet set Formula 2 calendar I've ever seen. It's which is great, which is objectively great for the viewer because it's, you go to lots of interesting racetracks and so on and so forth. It's also great for the drivers because I think one of the biggest hurdles from driving, regional, so you move through your domestic series, then you go to regional motorsport, then you go to world motorsport. And one of the biggest hurdles going into world motorsport is that, right, okay, now I'm in Australia and I still have to perform the way I performed when I was in Brackley. Or whatever, if you're from the UK, or vice versa, if indeed you're kind of set somewhere else in the world. But so I think that's great. I think the teams will look at that calendar and go, yeah, that's a lot of freight. That's a lot of freight cost. But it's great for us to watch. Qatar's going to be interesting and a really interesting challenge for the teams, tyres, drivers. So I think it's enough for another great year of Formula 2.
Aaron, despite the addition of Qatar, we've still got that really annoying gap that we talk about every year at the end of the year between September and the end of November. Adding Qatar didn't quite. If it was last season, it would have broken up the gap nicely. But obviously, Qatar moving a little bit closer to Abu Dhabi means that we've still got that big gap, right?
It does, but it does also make a bit more sense to have that big gap and then a double header rather than just Abu Dhabi on its own. So the drivers aren't waiting 2.5 months to get in the car for just one weekend. Now it's a double header, so they've got time to train physically for the Lusail circuit because that is going to be a real challenge. We saw it last year, obviously, in the Formula 1 race. Okay, the conditions at the time of year and the circumstances around the race itself was slightly different, but it's still a very physical challenge. Not much in the way of low-speed corners. It's primarily all high speed. And Alex, you'll be able to speak a bit more about the effects that will have on the human body. But having a double header actually makes it a little bit more worthwhile for the teams and the drivers to be travelling out of Europe to the Middle East, sort of putting down their camp and doing 2 races. It just makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, I really think it will be. Coming back to your point on a physical race, I hadn't really connected with how physical that's going to be because you got to remember no power steering in Formula 2 cars. Yes, they've changed the steering weight, but at the end of the day, if you want to go as fast as these cars will go, the energy has to come from somewhere. You can't just not. So either you are taking energy that the engine makes and turning it into steering torque, which is what power steering does if you look at it very reductively in terms of the system. Or that energy is coming from the hands of the drivers and clinging on around Qatar to a Formula 2 car for a feature race at what's probably going to be a suboptimal time of day as well. I can well imagine that the Formula 1 Grand Prix, I'll have to look down the schedule and see the start time, but I have to well imagine that the Formula 1 Grand Prix is going to be in optimal conditions, especially given the furore of last year, meaning that Formula 2 will get shoveled maybe to a hotter time of day. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we have drivers stopping early in that race or pacing themselves because I think those cars, purely from a hanging on to it perspective, are going to be outrageous around there. Yeah.
Do you think that's an important part of the education of a young driver is actually going to a circuit like that where it's difficult? You can't go flat out the whole time. Like we see young drivers come to Formula 1, like Hamilton, Verstappen, and they're just 100%, 10 tenths, every corner, every lap. Whereas this is going to be a slightly different challenge for the drivers. They're going to have to manage their race a bit more, think about how they not only expend the energy of the tyre and the car, but their own physical energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's all about what you think racing should be about, right? I think that is going to be a psychological challenge as much as anything for the drivers. There will be actors and people and viewers who don't think that putting drivers on the physical limit and telling them drive as fast as you're physically able is what racing's about. But then, that's a debate that raged after the Qatar Grand Prix, and that's a debate that rages continuously now. One thing's for sure is that in every racing calendar, it used to be Circuit of the Americas for the World Endurance Championship, because we had closed top cars and we raced in the middle of the day in August in Texas, which was a great idea. And you literally, you'd be sitting on the exercise bike in February thinking about Texas. That will be the race for Formula 2 drivers. They will be sitting on the exercise bike February, March, thinking about Qatar. And they will have a full plan of how they're going to keep their core temperature down, how they're going to hydrate, how they're going to, team physios will be flat out with the ice bars and the paddling pools and the ice jackets and everything else, because it'll be battle of the best prepared for sure.
I'd rather them than me. I'm going to be quite happy on the sofa watching it, not having to worry about any of the physicality that they're going to be going through. Let's move it on then. Driver lineups for this season. When I was writing this question, I mean, there's so many talking points, right? I mean, you've got probably Ollie Behrman, Victor Martin's highest returners. They're going to be definitely in the title fight. You've got the unknowns, haven't you? Kimi Antonelli and Miata coming across from Super Formula as a champion. You've then got probably the drivers with a bit of a point to prove. You've got Dennis Hauger, you've got Zane Maloney, maybe Enzo Fittipaldi falls into that bracket as well. And then you've got the rookies, Bortoletto, Zach O'Sullivan. It's so exciting. There's so many different talking points on there. What driver lineup stands out to you the most, Alex?
You've got to look at Prema and say that is probably the strongest lineup. But I do know what you mean. This is the sort of championship where someone's going to come from nowhere and really impress. It's going to be super, super competitive. From a pure interest perspective, and I'm going to go off the wall here slightly, is the driver I'm kind of most interested in, purely because I just don't have a read at all, is Miata. Because, I've seen drivers come across from those, I know how competitive those Japanese series are, because there's a well-trodden path, across back to, endurance sports car racing from things like Super GT 500 and Super Formula. And, you talk to someone like Andre Lotterer about those series and they take a big deep breath and they go, oh man, Super Formula is fast, mate.
Yeah.
But then I also know that there are drivers who've come across because of the vast cultural difference in racing terms and really struggled to capture the performance in European racing. And I also know drivers, who have driven in Japan, and then they like the culture in Japan. They come over to European racing and they purely don't like it, and they come back and they go back. So I'm so interested to see how that transition goes. We saw it a little bit with Liam Lawson across into Formula One and back, so we saw a bit of the level. But I think it's going to be a mind-blowing show of excellence or a real disappointment for him. And I don't know which way it's going to fall. So that's quite an extreme one for me.
He's got a great benchmark in Zane Maloney as well, hasn't he? Aaron, we saw 13 different winners last year in 2023, which was the most in the modern era of Formula 2. Could we see more than that this season? Could we see more than 13 winners?
I have a funny feeling that we're not going to see quite so many winners. I think we'll see lots of winners still, but I'm not sure we'll see quite so many. I think there might be a few drivers who sort of hit the nail on the head in terms of getting the car set up, obviously working with their team and sort of going with momentum and just sort of capitalising on that. But then this is Formula 2 and pretty much anything can happen. I was thinking this morning, there's in Formula 2, everything is a surprise, but it's also not a surprise because everything's a surprise, if that makes sense. So nothing's a surprise, but it's all a surprise. But there's so much talent in this field. Everyone could easily win a race, but I think we're going to see maybe 2, 3, 4 drivers really sort of emerge above everybody else and stake a claim for the championship. You've got drivers like Dennis Hauger, Enzo Fittipaldi, who are coming back for a third season. Martins and Behrman are now they were the top rookies last year. They're the top returners, like you say. They'll be expected to challenge for the title. There's the unknown in Miata. And there's this Antonelli chap who, by all accounts, seems quite good.
It's now a good time to talk about the... obviously, there was a bit of Formula 1 news over the last few weeks. Lewis Hamilton off to Ferrari. There is a Mercedes seat available. For me, I don't want to... I mean, the poor kid's got so much pressure on his shoulders as it is, and then Lewis Hamilton decides to head off to Ferrari, and obviously everyone's talking... Obviously, he has been mentioned. What's his mindset going into this season, Alex? What's knowing that there could be a Formula 1 drive available? How does he approach this season? There's so much pressure, right?
Well, the Formula One perspective on that pressure would be clear as it is brutal, which is that if you can't handle the pressure of getting to Formula One from Formula 2, then you definitely won't be able to handle the pressure of being in Formula One, trying to win a championship. So that much is clear. There will be absolutely zero provision made for trying to reduce the pressure on Antonelli. I think the position of Mercedes with regards to things like, the potential to sign Alex Albon is so interesting. There was a little bit of maybe hedge play between Albon's management talking about, a potential Red Bull move. What was it, about a week or so ago? And there's been no jump on that whatsoever. No one commented, no one said anything. Merck are leaving the door open for Antonelli. That much is clear. Toto Wolff has said maybe it's time to do something extreme and off the wall, like putting a young rookie Formula 2 champion in the Mercedes in 2025. Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, once you get out there, the pressure dissipates and you are making decisions with the fight or flight brain. It doesn't get much more pressurizing than that anyway. So you do your best and drive the car.
Does he need to win the F2 title, Alex, to be a Mercedes driver? Is that his only route in?
I think it's his only route in with momentum. So for me, there are two types of Formula 2 champion. You've got the Lewis Hamilton, George Russell Formula 2 champion. Your rock up, do the business and carry on with a load of buzz around you. Or you've got your, unfair to mention names, fourth year, built a huge amount of experience, hit the ground running because you've been running for 3 years, and then, become champion. I think to be taken seriously in a sort of Oscar Piastri style way by Mercedes, yes. Would he make it to Formula One via a Mercedes connection in a Williams with other people being shuffled up into the works car? Maybe. Is that the way that he'd want to? Probably not.
For me, if I was in Toto Wolff's position, which I'm absolutely not, but there's two exciting... I mean, the Albon, the Sainz, the Ocon options, I'm sure they'll be consistent and reliable drivers, but they're not exciting. I think Antonelli is exciting. The other one is obviously Fernando Alonso would be incredibly exciting, wouldn't it? But Antonelli, by the way, needs to win in his first 5 rounds of the Formula 2 season to beat Teo Porcher's record as the youngest ever Formula 2 winner. So he needs to win before, up until Monaco, he has that chance to break that record. So that would be really interesting to carry on watching. Aaron, who's your title favourite? Let's get into the nitty gritty. Come on, who's your title favourite?
I think based on his performances towards the end of last season, Victor Martins heads into this season as the favourite. He found that consistency towards the back end of 2023 after a slightly scrappy opening half of the year. Obviously, Monaco was a bit ropey for him, but he'd shown all the way through the year he had the raw pace, and Alex will testify to this. You can't teach speed, and that's something that will carry a driver through. I think we mentioned it with Oliver Behrman in our post-season review, and I think he's going to have stiff competition from the two boys at Prema. So it's how Victor handles that pressure. But also, there doesn't seem to be a route to Formula One for him. So even if he does go on and win it, what's he going to do with it? He can't go to Formula One. He'd need to go to Formula E, to the World Endurance Championship. Not to belittle them, but they're also not F1, which is where all of these drivers want to get to.
Alex, title favourite?
I'm just looking down the list here, using the time Aaron was answering the question there to cheat heavily, and just contemplating it. I think Behrman.
Okay.
Because I think you have a car underneath him more often. I think he will have matured over the off season and have harnessed some of that speed. I think he's got an element of continuity. I don't know. I see something in the kid. I think when push comes to shove, your Antonellis and your Miatas and your Bortolettos will be excellent towards the end of the year. There's no doubt about it. I think Behrman will come out of the blocks too fast for them. When you look, for example, at testing, early in the testing process, few days of testing, Antonelli demonstrates clear talent. There is an absolutely undeniable talent, because when the conditions are mixed and the track's all changing and everything's new for everyone, bang, up in the top 5 in his first day of Formula 2 testing. It wasn't his first day ever; it's the first day of the year, because he'd obviously tested at the end of last year. And then, as the rhythm slips in to the better teams, sink, and that's the reality, because it's and that's why winning in the first year is so impressive, because so much of it is just about pure knowledge and muscle memory, that it's going to be difficult for him to. I think as a rookie coming in, you can do an Oscar Piastri and overcome a field full of semi-shining talents. But when you have returning talents that are some of the best returning drivers that Formula 2 has ever, some of the highest finishing returning drivers that Formula 2 has ever seen, in the shape of Behrman and Martins, it's going to be hard for them to beat. And I would pick Behrman over Martins, I think, just based on pure raw speed and the fact that Prema, I think, is a tiny bit of a better car.
Yeah, so I've also gone for Ollie Behrman as my favourite for the title. You've given a great rationale there, Alex, as to why you think he's going to be the champion. My rationale has absolutely nothing to do with that. I love a good Formula 2 stat, so I'm going purely off the stats here. The Formula 2 Championship has never been won by someone with the same race number twice, right? So Charles Leclerc was number 1 when he won in 2017, George Russell number 8 in 2018, Nick de Vries was number 4 when he was champion, Schumacher 20, Piastri 2, Drugovich 11, and Teo Pourchaire 5. So that means that rules out this year's number 1, Victor Martins, Jerome Correa number 8, Antonelli 4, Hadjar 20, Zach O'Sullivan 2, Dennis Hauger 11, and Zane Maloney 5. So on that basis, I'm going that Ollie Behrman, number 3, continues that stat as the Formula 2 Championship has never been won by someone with the same race number, and Ollie Behrman's going to be champion. How's that for some logic?
I'm going to get you a dartboard and a blindfold, and you can just lob a dart. And then you just do all of your predictions with that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, we should do that. 100%. We'll get that sorted. In the paddock as well. Aaron, who do you think will be biggest surprise or one to watch this season?
I think keep an eye on Zach O'Sullivan, because he won more races than the eventual F3 champion Bortoletto last season. And he's gone into ART, who generally have been very strong in Formula 2. So that step up is going to be interesting. He's got a tough teammate, a good benchmark in that sense. If ART deliver the car, I don't see any reason why Zach O'Sullivan can't at least win some races this year and put himself in a sort of Victor Martins, Ollie Behrman position where he's had a really strong rookie year, and then when he goes into season 2, he is one of, if not the favourite for the Formula 2 title in 25.
Brundle, one to watch?
I'd agree with O'Sullivan. I think we look at his testing form; it's been very good as well. And he's put himself in a good position. We've lost Ralph Boschung from the series this year, and he was very kind of emotive after all of the years that he's done, behind the wheel of a Formula 2 car. I feel like Enzo Fittipaldi is taking away that like super experienced driver that on a very weird tyre day is just going to obliterate the field as well. Just out of just having the database of knowledge of the series and the tyre. So I think this could be the year, in a Van Amersfoort car, this could be the year of the where's he come from in that. We saw him do it a little bit when he was at Shrews. Like, whoa, okay, he's winning in that one then. Okay, that's fine. And I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit of that from him. But yeah, I agree. In terms of race wins where someone massively outperforms your expectation and doesn't quite have like the buzz around them, but delivers the performance, O'Sullivan's the clear pick.
Love it. I'm going with PHM. I'm going for a team. I'm going PHM. I think they've got 2 drivers. I think Taylor Barnard will be definitely one to watch this season. I think he'll score some points and he'll do all right this season. And Josh Dirksen, I think, will surprise a few people as well. And it just reminded me to plug our Josh Dirksen interview. If you haven't watched that already, go and check it out. We'll put the link in the comments below. Aaron, one bold prediction for 2024.
Antonelli to blitz everybody and win the championship. And then be the Mercedes replacement for Lewis Hamilton, because I think that is possibly the biggest follow-up story to Lewis leaving Mercedes, is they put in a teenager as his replacement. I mean, by the time Lewis gets into a Ferrari, he'll be 40. He's literally going to be old enough to be Antonelli's dad. So, I mean, you couldn't get more polar opposite in terms of the age bracket of driver that they're losing at Mercedes and one that they're going to be putting in. So if Kimi does the business, absolutely put him in. I think that's as bold as it could be.
Was Antonelli born when Lewis Hamilton made his debut? I'll go and research that as one for the next podcast. Alex, one bold prediction for the season.
Well, there's the alternative. There's the other branch of the tree, isn't there? There's the alternative storyline where Oliver Behrman and Antonelli get so wrapped up in racing each other desperately for the opportunity in Formula One that they actually, are so focused on each other they don't focus on the championship, which is the danger at Prema. And then that leaves the door wide open and somebody massively left field wins the series, which is a big headache for Mercedes, I think, because then you're looking at, okay, we're going to shuffle our drivers around. You've obviously Fred Vesti's then sort of arced off into sports cars, which says a lot about what they think about Antonelli. So I think the opposite storyline is going to be a bold prediction where those 2 drivers cost them not a prediction. That's unfair and unpleasant. I think it's a warning that those 2 drivers cost each other the series, and they'll be talking about that already.
So the Formula 2 equivalent of Hamilton and Alonso in 2007.
Yeah, or Hamilton and Rosberg in turn 4 at Barcelona. Yeah, kind of that kind of thing. I think, when you look at the cards as they're dealt, is a danger for Prema, and they're going to have to manage that. And it's not as simple in Formula 2 as just telling those 2 drivers, don't race each other, multi-21 guys. They're going to go, no, paid for my seat, mate. Thanks. I'll be going flat out for the victory. So. And
they've both got the carrot of a potential F1 seat. Obviously, Antonelli at Mercedes and Oliver Behrman with a Ferrari family seat, probably a Haas. if it's still a Haas by then. So there's that carrot on offer. So, like you said, they're just not going to listen, are they?
Not at all.
We could well see the Formula 2 champion graduate to Formula 1 for the first time in 3 years, which is obviously would be great for the series as well, definitely. One bold prediction from me. I was contemplating a few. I think Ollie Behrman is going to break the record of all-time Formula 2 wins. So in the modern era, the record is 8 currently. Drugovic, De Vries, and someone else, can't remember who it is. Ollie Behrman already has 4, so if he wins 5 races this year, he will break that record. So I think that is probably, my bold prediction for 2024. Before we go then, Alex, plans for the season, both racing and media-wise? What's the plan?
So I will be in the car. I'm not telling you where yet, but it will be a GT car. And it will be a very exciting series, including a 24-hour race. I am calling all Formula 2 and Formula 3 races for F1 TV. So very much looking forward to that. And other media plans to be disclosed at a later time. But you might see me a little bit more around other series, firstly. And always love to be in the Formula 1 paddock. So let's see.
Love it. I'm sure we'll get you on at some point later on in the season, and we can talk to you about those things. Okay, that's all we got time for today. Lots more content coming your way over the next few weeks as we count down to the new Formula 2 season. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you give it a like, and as we said at the start of the podcast, subscribe to hear more Formula 2 content. Get involved in the conversation on our social media channels as well. We always love hearing from you. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.